This again. Are you at your wits' end with pests and creepy crawlers in your condos, your townhouse, your house, your duplex, and you don't have a clue how to get rid of them? Or do you wonder if there are preventative actions that you can take to stop pests from spreading or from coming back? If you're wondering either of these two things, you are in exactly the right place tonight because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Gil and I are going to interview our special guest, who is Brian Sankey. He's the area director of Orkin, Calgary, and he has been in the extermination business for over 10 years. He's worked his way up starting as a technician, so he's been involved firsthand, hands-on or wands-on with creepy crawlers of all kinds. And he's worked his way up now to branch account manager in Calgary. So Brian is extremely knowledgeable about creepy crawlers, how to get rid of them, from every aspect. So we're going to grill him with lots of questions. And if you're new to Alberta Landlords Watch, I'm your co-host, Nelda Schulte, and I'm joined by Gil Donkersgood, my partner in crime. And if you want to subscribe and learn about all kinds of things that we can do to support landlords, hit the subscribe button. If you have landlords who are wondering how to self-manage, recommend us to them, forward our information to them. And if you want all your information in one place at one time, you can jump onto my website. It doesn't really show here in my poster behind, but it's www.neldaschulte.com. And you can also buy my book, Canadian Landlord's Handbook, written by me. And you can buy it on amazon.ca, where you get everything all in one place at one time in your hand. That's why I called it a handbook. So thank you all for joining us. And welcome, Brian. And thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brian, I'm just going to jump right in. And I'm starting to get itchy and creepy already because I think all of us have had encounters with bugs. And when Gil and I managed or ran our property management business, condos and townhouses and apartment buildings frequently had one of two household pests. And I'm going to ask you, though, I'm going to quiz you. What are the most common household pests that you encounter in Alberta?
I would say the most common that we've encountered is you have mice, cockroaches, bed bugs, ants, and fruit flies.
Okay, that's five. That's not two. That's five.
That's five.
That's a lot of bugs. Well, mice too.
Mice. Oh yeah, so they're a pest. I still classify them as a pest.
Okay, and we were talking before the show, and Brian said that there are many factors to consider when you're dealing with pests. It's not just the pests; it's the tenants' reactions to the pests.
Mm-hmm.
How do people react, or how? Because we used to find some people would tell us when there were bed bugs or cockroaches or mice, and other people wouldn't. You know, they would sort of tell you in passing. Like Gil went to an apartment to drop off a welcome gift to these tenants. And he said, how's the apartment going? And how are you like living in Calgary? And they were like, the woman said, oh, everything's great. We love the apartment. Oh, by the way, we've got bed bugs.
Yeah.
So Gil told me, and I freaked out. I'm like, take everything off at the door. Don't come in here. You know,
gave the neighbors quite a show.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So how did the tenants react? I know how I reacted.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's so many different walks of life that you find within different units and different places, different rental areas, all walks of life. So we really can't judge on past history, on where people came from, what their past experience is like. We just know that they're kind of present in the unit at times. Now, sometimes we don't know because there's tenants out there that wherever they lived previously, they feel it's normal just to live with those kind of pests, or maybe there was a negligent person that looked after their property that just didn't worry so much, but they just learned to live with them. So that's unfortunate on that. So they're kind of don't really speak up because they don't see an issue really with it, or they feel like they're helpless. Another issue is people feel embarrassed to bring that up, that they have a pest issue. Bugs like cockroaches and bed bugs are hitchhiker bugs. They can come from anywhere, whether you're clean, you're dirty, or where have you. They can come from anywhere. So for them to be deemed a dirty bug, people don't want to be called dirty, and I totally understand that, but they do get embarrassed for bringing that up. You just kind of almost got to normalize the fact that these creatures do exist in the habitats we live in. And in order for us to help the well-being and the living situations of where people live and make them the best they can be, is to identify those pests at early stages as much as possible. So I do encourage people to educate tenants, not necessarily because there is a problem, but there could be a problem in how to identify and prevent future infestations.
Right. So actually, to that end, I just published on my website, I've got forms that are called Be Smart forms. And one of them is Be Smart bed bugs, Be Smart cockroaches, Be Smart rodents.
Yep.
And it's types of things that you can do to prevent cockroach, bring them in,
Yep.
what you can do to prevent bringing in bed bugs, and what you can do to prevent them spreading. So anyway, so that's the first step is, I guess, educating your tenants on
Yep.
what to do to prevent them or to not bring them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second step, I think, would be making sure that you let them know that you want them to tell you if there's a problem.
Yeah.
So that you can deal with it, because it's a landlord's responsibility to deal with pests.
Exactly.
And we used to get multiple landlords who would say, well, I never had a problem with bugs until the tenants moved in. Obviously, it's their problem, so they should pay for it. But if you're in a condo or an apartment building, you don't know where they came from. They travel between walls.
No, exactly. They can travel through walls. There's bed bugs that travel through the electrical lines because they're hot, they're warm. So they'll follow through the outlets as well, transfer through the apartments and places, as well as the baseboard heating. If there's baseboard heating, they're all connected, so they travel through that as well. And really, you just got to hit home that it's you and the tenant against the bugs. So it's not a matter of human against human. It's two humans or two parties against these insects we got to get rid of.
Yeah, we quite often had landlords that would say, "I don't want to pay for it," but in the end, it's the responsibility of the landlord to provide a healthy and safe environment, and it's not up to anyone to find fault with the people who, like, you just have no way of knowing where the bugs came from. So
exactly, and I like to tell people and put it this way: is that pest control is really, we're doctors for buildings. We make sure if a cockroach or bed bug or mice get into a building, that's like a virus in our bodies. So we want to take care of and get rid of that. So now if a landlord owns a bunch of owns like an apartment building, has a bunch of units in there, and there's a virus in that unit, it doesn't matter where it came from, we need it gone, right? Otherwise it starts to spread throughout the whole building or body of the living place, right? So
Exactly. So how do you identify a bed bug infestation in your apartment aside from,
yeah, so it begins with an inspection. Typically bed bugs won't travel too far from where you are sitting already. So the spots that you're going to find the most likely are going to be first and foremost the bed, hence bed bugs. A little known fact as well, they're going to be on the headboard, or not on the headboard, but right on the mattress part where you rest your head. And they're also going to be found more on the female side. If there's like a male and a female in there, because of the CO2 makeup that the female has, they're going to be more likely on that side. So that'd be more of an easier test to see where they are. And what you would do is you'd be looking for little pieces of pepper. So they're little black dots. And that's the fecal spots of the bed bugs. And they happen to be in like little clusters that you'll find in certain areas. So if you see little clusters of like 8, 9, 10 black dots on the mattress for some reason, that's a sign of an early bed bug infestation. You let that continue, those dots are going to multiply. They're also going to have eggs that are going to be popping up. And to identify eggs, you can fit about 5 bed bug eggs in the size of a grain of rice.
Ew.
And you're going to want to, when you shine a flashlight on them, they'll glow, they'll shimmer a little bit. So they differentiate. Sometimes they can mistake them for dandruff pieces because they're that small. But if you blow on them and they don't move and you shine a light and they shine, they're bed bug eggs. And unfortunately, one of the only ways to get rid of the eggs themselves and kill them is hot steam and burn the eggs, because a lot of bugs out there, and most bugs out there are chemical resistant when they're in their egg form.
Huh. Because we had a condo that had the lady called us, and she had a little guy, had a rash on his elbows, and he had like red welts, like mosquito bites all over his body.
Mhm.
And it was the dead of winter. And so she brought him to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, he's got bed bug bites. And so she freaked out and called us and said, I want to go to the apartment, and what am I going to do? And can we move in with you? And we're like, no.
Right.
Just what we want, all the tenants moving into our little house.
No.
So I said, well, we'll call an exterminator. And then they came back at regular intervals. But it was a condo building. I also called the condo association. I called the board and said, there's a problem in this unit. I'm sure it's not just one unit. Can you fumigate throughout? And they didn't. So they had to come back several times. And then when we got rid of those, then mice got in somehow. So I was like, that poor woman.
Right.
She was super, super clean. And this was
and the reason also I find that I think why bed bugs have spread so rapidly is because there's a good majority of the population that don't actually react to bed bug bites.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's probably high, about 70-80% don't react to bed bug bites.
Really?
I was a technician. I ended up bringing them home one time. I didn't know till it was like too late because I'm actually part of the population. I don't react to them. So I didn't know I had them until I woke up at 3 a.m. one morning crawling on my face.
Oh.
So I got up and went to my truck, kicked my roommates out, and I treated my house. I went somewhere else to sleep.
Wow.
But that's the scary thing, and I think that's why they've been able to succeed so far, like in history, because a lot of the population doesn't react, so they don't know they're there.
Huh. Wow. How do you most effectively get rid of cockroaches?
Get rid of cockroaches. Well, you want to take away their food source, so and any water source. So if you have any damp areas, or if there's puddles, like say under the sink, or any little water spots, they can find water from a variety of sources. Even when it's a hot day and you have condensation on the pipes, they might get a drink there. But what you really want to focus on is safe food storage, because they need to eat as well. So you're going to want to clean up any crumbs, put food into plastic or glass containers as much as you can. You're going to want to avoid and check. Like also when you come in, make sure you break down your cardboard and break down your recycling, especially if it's like a little thicker cardboard. With the corrugated, they have the little separation in there. Cockroaches love to go in there, lay their eggs. And before you know it, you let your boxes sit there for too long, and there might have been, some eggs in there that hatch that have made their way into your kitchen. So I always recommend, proper food storage, and get your recycling, get your cardboard out ASAP. As far as treating for cockroaches yourself, it's a little difficult as possible, but you do got to find the areas that they do like to have their eggs and their harbridge, but they're really sneaky. They like to hide in the walls. So I do recommend at least somebody to come in and inspect, someone, either a pest control professional or somebody to come in and identify the cockroach, because there is bait out there that works for cockroaches, but you really got to identify. In Calgary itself, I've seen brown banded cockroaches, American cockroaches, and German cockroaches, which is the most common. And each three of those have a different bait or application that would work, and the other one won't work for the other one.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's really important to identify your pests to be able. So what you can do on the tenant side or the landlord side for in the time being is just proper storage and cleaning. I wouldn't go too far, as I've been in a couple of units that identify cockroaches in the next door neighbor, and they literally caulked every little crack and crevice that they could. That just makes the problem a little bit worse. Kind of pushes.
Oh, really?
They're going to
I did that.
It'll stop them from getting into that unit specifically, but they're going to always want to go somewhere else, especially if some place is self-treating, or doing some kind of aerosol spray. Could end up pushing the roaches further into the wall, and if they can't reach any further, then they might start going up or down.
Oh, wow. Okay, because we ended up I had a neighbor who moved next door. I live in a duplex, and they came from overseas. And as soon as they moved into the house, we started getting cockroaches. And first, just a couple in May, so I put out traps, caught them. The downstairs tenant didn't really see any. And then in December, we got a few more. And so I started getting concerned. I called an exterminator. He just put traps out, and he just squirted some stuff in them.
Yep.
And then I didn't see, I saw a couple in December, and then in March, my downstairs tenant called me and said, I've got a big problem here. So we had all the traps out, and there were lots of cockroaches in the traps, and they were the German cockroaches. So I watched programs I want to do, and we caulked and we put all that cockroach foam around the pipes and everything. We put gel in all the little nooks and crevices. We put diatomaceous earth under the fridge, under the stove, in the cupboards.
So the one thing I did want to mention, I didn't hear you say diatomaceous earth. Great, fantastic. One little trick of phrase that I like to use with diatomaceous earth: if you see white, it's not right.
Oh, really?
So you want a thin layer of that. And the theory behind that is, have you ever walked through a parking lot, and you've seen the shimmering of glass, right? You see the shimmering of the parking lot. So that's kind of thin glass. You're gonna walk over top of that with no problem. You have shoes, everything's good, it's safe. Now, if you've seen a big pile of glass, would you do the same thing, or would you walk around it? So that's the same thing as cockroaches. They're gonna see this white dust, and they're going to try their best to walk around and avoid it instead of walking right over top of it.
Oh.
The thin layer, they're not even going to notice it. You're going to have more effective way of knocking them down, and it's going to get in their mandibles and get in the cracks and crevices that way, and they're just going to walk right over it.
Oh,
so
wow.
Thin layer, and I usually use like a fresh paintbrush and just paint it on where I need it to be.
Okay, well, I really overdid it because it looks like it snowed.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit as well.
Okay, so yeah, overkill is not
necessarily, yeah, and there's also some chemicals that we use when we mix in our spray tanks, where we think, we put more juice, we're going to amp it up, it's going to kill everything. It makes it less effective. It actually sometimes repels the bugs from even wanting to do it. So we got to have the right mixture. We do a little bit of chemistry to make sure we have the right formulation and percentage of active ingredient, and then we lay that chemical down just so they can cross over it, so it's a residual. We don't want to repel them.
Well, one thing I did notice that there are less of, because usually I have a huge infestation of ants at this time of the year, and I don't have them this year because I put so much diatomaceous earth on the threshold of my balcony door, and it's of course everywhere else in my kitchen. So I haven't seen. I saw one ant on Saturday, but that's it. And every other year there are hundreds of them. They get in the kitchen, they get in the bathroom. I find them everywhere. So,
I have lots of ants this year, just for the record.
Yeah.
Question about ants: are they dangerous to have, or are they just a nuisance?
I would say mostly just a nuisance. Now there's a couple ants, like in Alberta. There's like I've seen a nest of fire ants before. You don't want to touch them; they sting. But for common ants, you're gonna see pavement ants. They're your normal typical ant there. You got your winged reproductive ants. They kind of it's neat. They'll kind of grow wings, find a new nest, and lose their wings, become ants again. So they just kind of swarm. Those you'll usually find in vestibules, in lobbies. You'll see the winged reproductives, and then pharaoh ants. Those are the tiny little reddish brown ants, and those ants specifically are kind of neat because those are the ants you want to put bait down for. If you start killing these tiny little red ants, brownish red ants, what that does is it stresses out the queen. So the queen sends out 10% of her nest, and if those 10% don't come back, or a good number doesn't come back, she gets stressed out. She makes other ants a queen, and now they're making satellite nests in your house. So you want a slow-acting bait so they can take the bait, bring it back to the queen, and kill off the queen. So once the queen's dead, the colony doesn't survive after that. But if you kill them off too fast, then there's less likely. Now, the other common ant is a carpenter ant. Carpenter ants are they're busy working. They're not really going to bother the humans. They're not really dangerous. They're not poisonous. They do bite. So if you do put your hand in a carpenter ant nest, expect to get bitten because they're just protecting their territory, but you're not going to get any poison or anything from them. But you got to be careful with carpenter ants in damp wood because they will start eating the wood and start causing damage, almost similar to termites. You'll start seeing sawdust on the ground, and that's just going to weaken the structure of whatever they're chewing on.
Okay, I guess you need to know your bugs to know how to treat them, right? Because whenever I've had any kind of bug issues, it's like get out the stuff and just kill everything and put lots of it out there, and obviously that's
tent the house, set the bomb, and run.
Yeah. Well, the running part is good though. That's let's say catch you. And then what are mice? I'm going to ask the last question about mice, and then Gil's going to take over. So, what are effective methods of getting rid of mice? Because this one mouse infestation we had, I was pretty sure came from in the same condo. There was a balcony on the outside on the main floor, and it had a loose electrical outlet.
Yep.
And it had a fair sized hole. And so I wasn't allowed to touch the envelope of the building as property manager. So I contacted the condo board and I said, here it is. There's a picture of it. Can you fix it? And they didn't. And then mice started getting into the kitchen.
Yep.
So then I brought my handyman in. I thought, the heck with it. We'll fix that. Plug all the mouse holes. And then we got a cleaning person and cleaned everything up. And then there were no more mice for a little while. And then there was another infestation, which they thought was coming from the parkade, because the parkade was right underneath of the main floor. But I have no idea where they came in at that point. But how do you get rid of them?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. So if you've already noticed them in your house or your place, they have they're very identifiable. Mice can poop. Single mouse can poop up to 100 times a day. They'll let you know that they're there. They're gross. They start shredding in pieces of paper. We've probably all seen the signs of mice and nesting. So to keep them away, again, it's going to help with proper food storage. You're going to want to make it less inviting for them to come. You're also going to want to take a look at like what I mentioned before with the baseboard heating. Now, if you open up the baseboard heating in that first panel there, you look on the ends of where it connects to the wall. I've noticed a lot of contractors actually don't finish off and put any flanges or sealant on those edges. So I recommend sealing those with some kind of material that's not going to catch fire or cause any damage that way. And if you're going to use any steel wool or spray foam, a lot of people reach for the spray foam when it comes to mice. Spray foam is good for a moment, but what that is a big sponge. So spray foam will let their scent pass through the foam, and they're going to keep chewing and chewing and chewing and getting right through the spray foam. So the trick that I use is I'll get either steel wool or copper mesh, and I'll plug the hole first, and then I would spray foam over top of it.
Oh, okay.
Once they chew through, and this is just secure the mesh, but once they chew through, they're going to bite into that copper mesh or the steel wool, and it's going to send shivers down their spine, like if we bit on a piece of tinfoil. And they're not going to like that, and they're going to head out the other way. So that's how you can close it up. Sorry?
Don't give us good snacks. We're out of here.
Exactly. You make it less inviting. And then if you do need to actually get to the get to the point of trapping, glue boards will work as well. If you need to use a snap trap, well, my advice is, in this, you don't even really need bait, but find the path that they're kind of running. Don't put it in the middle of the floor. It's not really going to work that well. You're going to want to put it up, butt it up against a wall and have it so it snaps towards the wall. Because mice are pretty blind, and they use their whiskers to run along walls. Tufts of hair here to let them know any danger in front of them. So if you catch them while they're running along the wall, they're not even going to notice that trap's there before it hits. So that'll help catch them more effectively. And other than that, exclusion. Find gaps. Find holes around the place. Utility pipes. Mice, and you got to find from the exterior kind of where they're coming in, or if you're dealing from inside the unit itself, find any holes that they can get to from the outside or from the walls. And all they need is the size of a dime to get through. Like your baby finger, if your baby finger can fit into that hole, a mouse could probably wriggle its way through.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that really thoroughly gives me the creeps.
No kidding, Aaron. I'm starting to feel itchy just thinking about it.
I killed her up on a farm. He used to hunt with flora and fauna every day of his life.
Oh yeah, we had mice in the granaries, and yeah. Okay, so I'll take the next few questions. Let's talk about fruit flies.
Sure. So fruit flies, that is, believe it or not, so people are I've had people call pest control for fruit flies, which is great. They are pests. There's not really a spray or a knockdown. We can have a knockdown that we come in with an aerosol, we'll spray down, we'll kill the adults, but that's not going to find the eggs or the source. So really it's sanitation. There's got to be something rotten. There's got to be either some water that leaked out of the dishwasher that's, has a moldy cucumber or something happening in there. There's got to be something in your house that's causing these fruit flies to be there. It's sometimes in a drain, not often, but it's usually either in a garbage or a piece of fruit that's rolled down. And it's just cleaning up and monitoring. Now, to catch fruit flies, you can use what I use is some apple cider vinegar. We put it into a cup, and you can either cover it with saran wrap and poke some holes in it so they can go in. So this is the DIY version of it. Poke some holes so they can go in. They can't come out. Now, if you don't have any saran wrap, what you can also do is do a drop of dish soap, Dawn dish soap, just to break the surface tension on the top. So they'll still smell the apple cider vinegar. They'll fly in, but once they land on it to get the drink, they won't be able to move because of the dish soap. And then that's going to catch them in the meantime while you're trying to identify where these things are coming from. And if you really want to go even more deep in science into it, make a few of those. Put them around the house. Now, the cup that has the most fruit flies in it is where the area is going to be. It's going to be close to that area, so you're going to identify where that's going to be.
Question, of course, but once you've removed the food source, how quickly will the fruit flies go away?
You should see them gone about 3 to 5 days.
Oh,
They don't last very long. They're weak flyers. You can always see them buzzing around, so they always want to kind of move. They don't last very long, so you should see results after you've cleaned it about 3 to 5 days. They should be completely gone. If they're not, keep looking, and you can't find it, call pest control.
That's really interesting.
yeah.
Okay, the next one is silverfish. That one's really creepy.
Yeah, and they're really, they move a little creepy too, and I think they're called silverfish because they move kind of like, wavy,
Yeah.
almost like a fish, right? Again, not related to the fish family, but they do like moisture. You can find them mostly in your bathroom, in your basement, kind of where it's damp. In crawl spaces, you can find these silverfish, and how you can find it, identify them as well is sometimes in the bathroom, especially if you have like white tile, it's easier to tell. But you might notice some yellow stains that are around the edges or near the what's it called, grout. And you'll also notice like again what looks like small pieces of pepper, which is little fecal spots. And again, you might notice the bug itself. It's not very big. It's very small. It's only about I'd say probably about a centimeter big or a couple centimeters, and it kind of moves around. They're pretty identifiable. So to help get rid of them is reduce some of the moisture. Your place might be too humid, so run a fan, open up a window, get the air circulating. You can even run a dehumidifier, and that's going to help with the silverfish problem. So you can still clean and get that, but if your place is still moist, they'll still probably feel a little bit welcome there.
The first place I ever saw silverfish was when I was in university. I was taking a course in one of the buildings at the University of Alberta. And I looked down at my feet, there was silverfish there. I was like, ah, because I had my backpack on the floor. So I lifted it up. The woman beside me worked for the university. She did admin support. And she's like, they're here all the time. I'm always signing requisitions for exterminators. Like, didn't bother her in the least. I was really scared I was going to be bringing them home.
Oh, exactly. And well, good thing is they're not really hitchhiker bugs, so that's a good thing. But they do also, that makes sense that you would find them there because they do like books and paper as well, different organic fibers. So that definitely makes sense. So if you're in like cardboard and paper, if you start seeing like little tiny holes in that area, that's a good indication that some silverfish may be around.
So they are learned and fashionable pests. They like books. They like fashion.
Oh yeah, you should see the little spectacles they got on too. Only under a microscope, though.
Great.
So, would you consider a silverfish a pest? I mean, it's eating paper and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say it's a pest because if left unattended, it could start causing damage to property. It would take, I think, a long time and a lot of negligence for that to happen, but they are still creepy, crawly, and not so hygienic. So, I would recommend just taking care of that problem too.
We didn't ask that question about fruit flies, but I mean, fruit flies are eating your food. So, and I'm not sure if they carry any disease, but at the very least, I guess they're eating what you're going to eat.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. They're more of a nuisance, I find. Again, you don't want flies landing on your food, but it's the same when you're sitting out on a patio and a little blow or a cluster fly or a different house fly comes and lands on your food and kind of runs away. It's not. They're more of a nuisance, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a fun one: wasp nests.
And this is how we were first introduced to Orkin because we had wasps' nests under our shed.
Yeah.
I seem to think that they were not a big threat
Mm-hmm.
Gil told me don't go out there until after dark because he knows wasps way better than I do. I'm like, So I went to get something out of the shed and I got bitten. Not once, not twice, not three. I got bitten 5 times. And boy, do those stings ever hurt.
Oh,
Holy cuddles. They hurt constantly. If you have a wasp bite for a week, it hurts all day, all night for a week.
yep.
I do not
And
recommend getting bitten
yeah.
by a wasp.
Oh, exactly. And the reason you got bit so many times is because the first wasp let the pheromone in you, to let the other wasps know that you're the enemy. So they will know and they'll find ways to get you. And I mean, there's been times where I've been stung treating a wasp nest, and I won't do another wasp nest for about 2 or 3 days till I get some of the pheromone out, because I'm just going to be a target to every nest that I go to after that.
Yeah.
And you really got to identify. There is different types. So we're talking about wasps. You got to make sure they're also not honeybees or bumblebees.
Right.
You got to make sure they're an actual wasp. And there's 2 types. They tend 2 different nests that they like to make. They'll make the typical paper nest that you can see in a tree, or like for underneath the shed, they'd be making the paper nest underneath the shed. But they also have, if on top of soffits of houses or inside cracks, or they find a little hole, they'll go in and just go into one little hole and they'll start building a nest inside the wall. So there are 2 different really treatment options. And yes, you should really wait till they're a bit dormant around nighttime. That's when it's going to be easier for you. But to be fair, once you piss them off, you've pissed them off. They're coming out in full force. I really recommend.
Wasps bite my ass because I did get some wasp bites on my bum, and they were really painful.
Yeah, you're gonna want to like wear PPE, wear a helmet at least, like because I've treated some wasp nests and they'll bing off your head. They have a flight pattern that goes in the V towards. So you want to, if you're gonna want to try, again, I don't recommend pest control, or do your research before. But if you want to try, you'll want to look and watch their flight pattern. They're going to fly in a V, and you're going to want to stay out of which way they're coming. You're going to want to stay in the middle or the side, and you're going to want to not approach them right away. You're going to want to step back a little bit. It's almost like a dance with these wasps to try and to eradicate it. And once you've annoyed the nest, all they're going to care about for that moment is getting the babies out and the queen and worrying about their nest. And if you successfully get rid of the nest, expect to see wasps coming back about 2 or 3 days afterwards. They're going to keep coming back. Think of it as if your home just kind of up and left. You're going to keep revisiting your home and be like, I swear I lived here. Like, I don't understand where my house went. So that's what the wasps are doing. They're going to keep coming back. Just check it out.
We hired an Orkin exterminator to come, and he just shows up in shorts and a t-shirt. Like, no big deal.
Well, when you have the weapons, it's kind of easier, right?
I guess
it was effective.
It was effective, and yeah, you could see them flying back, going, "Didn't we used to live here? Or didn't we have?"
And some of them would actually fly back in and encounter the poison and still like it really.
Oh, yeah.
And those wasps, they tend to be really, really ornery. They're like and especially in Calgary and even here. You get to the warmer times of summer and you're trying to have a barbecue or something and you just can't.
No. And that's the time they're going to actually bug you the most, is in about August or September. Because they're looking, trying to find all their foods to survive the winter. So they don't care at that time. They're going to come up on your pop can. They're going to come up on your food. They're going to take anything they want. Whereas the springtime, they're more focused about building their nest. So you're not going to see them as much because they're out there in the garden. They're getting their sticks in the mud and everything to build their nests. But they want to survive the winter. So, yeah, you'll see them more in August and September. And that's when we get a lot of our calls, because that's when they make themselves known.
Yes. I've had many bad experiences with wasps. When we had them, I tried to flood them, and that was completely unsuccessful. When they were under the shed, like there was really nothing we could do. I did have one small hole where I could actually buy a foam that I could plug the hole with, and that was successful. But for the larger opening where it would not have been possible to cover that hole with a foam in enough time to stop myself from getting attacked. And even when I'm very, very reticent to try to deal with wasps at this point, because you have to be very, very good or just go with a pro. I don't think I'd try it again.
No, I wouldn't either, just because we thought we could plug the holes with rocks, which is what I was trying to do when I got bitten 5 times. So that was not very smart. So yes, we we learned our lesson in cold work, and that really helped.
It's invigorating, but not recommended.
Yeah.
I learned
Yes.
how fast I could run.
Right?
We had a neighbor who had all these solar panels on the top of her house, and she discovered that, lo and behold, there were a lot of pigeons living under there, so she took them all out, cleaned everything up. But then what ended up happening was the pigeons were trying to find other places to live.
Mm-hmm.
So the pigeons ended up all over the place. So this is Gil's next question.
Yes. What will we do about pigeons on the balcony or around the property?
So that if they're around the property and they're not really on your balcony yet, but you do notice them, they're kind of flying on the building, they're scoping the place out. Inform the like the tenant should inform the landlord and let them know. For the landlords, they should really keep an eye out on the building itself. Now, if they are landing on the roof, there's options where we could trap them, do a trapping program. There is traps that they'd come in with the corn, and then we just come and remove them off site. There's also deterrents, like visual deterrents. Now, there's a couple there's many different deterrents, visual deterrents, sound deterrents, depending on which situation. But there's a visual one that just spins in the using the air, and it reflects the sunlight off of these discs or these bright discs, these spinning things, right? So what that does is when the sun flashes on that, it disorients the bird, and the bird doesn't want to land where that is. It doesn't feel like it's safe. So I've seen a lot of tenants as well. Sometimes I've seen people hang CDs. I've seen them hang streamers, wind chimes that are flashy, and that's going to help deter the pigeons away. If they are causing, they've already, kind of made a nest, or they're putting droppings on the balcony, we should really get those cleaned up as soon as possible. And you're going to want to use a heavier disinfectant cleaner because you want to take away their scent and their pheromone. If you don't take away their scent and their pheromone, they're always going to return to that same spot. It's almost like like a homing thing ingrained in their brain that once they've established a spot, no matter which way they fly, upside down, sideways, wherever, they're always going to come back to that same spot because that's where they feel the safest. So you're going to want to remove the pheromones as much as possible, as well as if there's any clutter on the balcony that they could hide behind. You want to reduce the areas that they could hide. A lot of pigeons that I've encountered as well will actually make a nest in behind the barbecue.
Yes, I had that. Actually, I lived in this really nice condo in downtown Edmonton for 5 years, never had a pigeon problem, except for the last summer that I was there. And for some reason, all the pigeons decided they wanted to live on my balcony. And we tried everything. We put netting up. They got through. We put chicken wire up on the bottom. They still managed to crawl through a little hole that was in the bottom there. I was trying all these different things to get rid of them. And finally, we sort of totally encased my condo with all of this chicken wire, which looked like I had the criminal balcony. And then one pigeon got through.
Yep.
Laid its eggs under my barbecue cover.
Yep.
And then So I pushed the eggs off the balcony, and the pigeon came back, but I found where the hole was, and I sealed that up. And then I tried to disinfect everything, but I don't think I used a strong enough disinfectant. And I must have, when I was wearing rubber gloves, I must have gone like this, because I ended up with this fungus infection on my face afterwards, which was really hard to get rid of. So that was
they're not very sanitary birds. And just a message as well out there is so a lot of people will use the owl, the fake owl. I don't know if you've seen that in places.
Yeah, the pigeons all over my owl.
Yeah. Yeah. So the trick with the owl is you have to move it daily.
Yeah.
You have to move it in different spots. If it stays the same spot and you install it and it's all of a sudden sun washed and beaten down, they don't care. They know it's a fake owl. You really have to move it so it feels like it's kind of watching them. It's a predator. As well, if you're really unsure, because bird problems and pigeon problems are kind of tricky at times, Orkin does offer free inspections for that as well. So if you're stumped, you don't know what to do, just give us a call. We'll come out and we'll take a look and we'll give you some ideas on how to address it.
So we should. I know this isn't on the list. We did talk about bed bugs already, Gil. So maybe we had a condo that had a bizarre problem. They had a woodpecker that was pecking so hard on the outside of the building on the condo that it actually pecked into the bedroom wall.
It went through the building envelope, through the insulation and through the drywall and created a perfectly round hole, probably about an inch in diameter,
Yeah.
right through.
That's wild. I mean, that's got to be like a really strong beak. Now, the reason it was probably doing that is going for the bugs inside the wall.
Ah.
There's bugs that are inside. Sometimes it'll be like in between the vapor barrier and the insulation, and they'll keep pecking and pecking and pecking and getting into there. Now, there's deterrents that you can use. They're called intimidators. They basically hang down off the building. They look like big fishing lures and spin in the wind. They work to an extent. And there's also these optica discs that you could place as well, kind of around the holes. They won't enter it again because these discs look like it makes the building look like on fire to them. But they can also move next as well. So, we're constantly trying to think of different ways to deter these woodpeckers because, we don't trap them. We don't want to hurt them. And I believe they're one of the protected species.
Yes, they are.
So we can only really deter them at this moment. So it's really hard. I'd say for anybody remodeling or doing anything that way, or they're doing a reno, stay away from stucco. Something porous or something that they can peck through, stay away from that. So, wood or other siding or flashing that looks nice might be a better choice if you know that there is woodpeckers in the area. But they're probably going for that for the bugs. And the woodpecker presence isn't very long. It's usually, say, from 2 weeks ago to about 3 or 4 weeks from now. And you also find them sometimes on top of chimneys and top of areas on the roofs pecking.
Yes.
Right, making these really loud noises, and that's just the mating call. So they want to protect their species. So they're just trying to attract the female that way, which is really annoying. But the optica discs are perfect for that. So if you do have a woodpecker that visits every single year and you want to stop that, there's sensory discs that can be installed on those.
We had a metal covered street light on our just outside of our property, and they would land on there, and you could just hear that rattle. It was loud.
Oh, for God's sakes! You can't peck through metal, right?
Right? Yeah, but they're just signaling the female to come by.
It's like, hey, come on over. Available. Yep.
Exactly.
Better than an now. Skunks.
Skunks.
We have lots of skunks in this area.
We do. So you want to, skunks around this time of year is a little bit difficult to catch or do any live trapping, just because the moms are having their babies right now. They're very protective. They're in their dens. If you notice a skunk that's going a certain area, you can also see their path. If you have, built up grass, you can kind of see where the grass has been trampled through. You see their path going. You can either, once it's done, I recommend, just to be nice to the baby skunks, once they've vacated, block up those areas that they're kind of hanging around. Now, if you live in a building and you see them around the building, notify the right people. Tenants should notify the landlord. And again, the landlord should always be walking around the building, making sure everything's good, on their normal garbage pickup. Take a look on see if you see any skunk activity. You'll sure smell them around if they've been started. Another good thing is you can use what's called Critter Ritter. It's a deterrent, which is basically crushed up hot peppers. If you sprinkle that around their path or around the building, they're going to tend to stay away because just like a lot of other rodents, they groom themselves a lot. So once they get the hot peppers on their paws and their hands, they groom themselves. It'll be spicy in their mouth. They won't want to be in that area much longer. So they'll start to vacate as well. If you do see a skunk, don't approach it. Let it be. Don't try and hug the big stinky kitty. It's not smart.
Yeah, we had dogs who never learned not to hang out with skunks when I was on the farm. How about squirrels?
Oh, my pet peeve.
Oh, squirrels. Squirrels, if they've already gotten into a place, or let's say a balcony again, you want to take away make it less welcoming for them. You're going to want to take away any harborage sites, any places that they can nest. I've had squirrels go up into attics and kind of make homes.
Yep.
At that point, once they're in, it's kind of hard to get them out other than either live trapping or snap traps as well. You can't just really text them and say, can you leave, please? That doesn't work that much. It worked once, I think. What I recommend is it actually comes down to landscaping. So if there's any dense trees or shrubs or anything in the area, try and reduce the density of them. If there's any overhanging trees from the property, cut away the trees so they're not resting on the roof. You don't want the squirrel to have easy access just to get on your roof, because every time the squirrel's on the roof, it's not only looking for things around the neighborhood, it's also looking for ways to get into that roof where it's underneath, or if it can pull a piece of little metal back or pieces and just work its way in eventually. So to stop that altogether, and we've seen squirrels climb up scale brick buildings and stuff like that. There's not really much at that point. They can kind of do that anyways. But just to prevent further, if you do have any overhanging trees or shrubs, and this works for helps with mice as well, is just taking them back. You don't want any pests entering from the trees. You don't want to make it easy for pests to get into your building.
You should tell about our acrobatic squirrel.
Well, my sister one year for Christmas gave us this. It was like a hockey puck, but it was seeds with sinew and stuff in it, and it had like sort of hooked like this. So we hooked it onto our it was a bird feeder, and so we hooked it onto the eaves trough in front of our balcony window, because we thought it'd be entertaining to see all the different birds that would come and eat it. But the squirrels discovered it, and they just were like eating it like there was no tomorrow. And so Gil was finding all these ingenious ways to deter the squirrels from getting onto the device. So at one point he had all these different hooks that went up in different directions. And, so the squirrels would have, if they got on there, they impale themselves on it. So anyway, this one time I'm standing in front of the balcony with my tea, and I see this squirrel running along the balcony railing, jump up backwards, flip up backwards, hang by his feet, and then get up and start gnawing away on it. I'm like, we've got Cirque du Soleil squirrels.
Oh, they're creative. They're very creative. They're funny to watch. They're kind of cute, but they are a pest.
They're a pest, and they also dig up my bulbs. If they ate my bulbs, I wouldn't be so vindictive and bitter. But because they just dig up my bulbs and throw them down, that always bothers me. It's like, why do you have to destroy my flowers? I'm trying to make the place look pretty here. But they do every year. I don't know. We've tried everything to get rid of them. Mothballs, spiky little sticks, skewers, windmills. They always throw everything out and then take the bulbs out, throw the bulbs out too.
They're very clever for having brains the size of peas.
Yep. Well, Critter Ritter also works for them as well.
Really?
So you can sprinkle that in your garden, and squirrels will stay away.
I will have to get a gallon of it, because I think every time it rains or something, then you have to start all over again, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Critter Ritter.
I think Home Hardware sells that.
They do.
So what other pests have I not talked about? Well, Gil has a problem with deer and bear.
Wait, there's a simple solution. You just keep the food source away. Deer, well, you can't shoot them here.
It's just keeping your area clean. That's a lot of it is sanitation, just keeping your living space, enjoyable to you and unenjoyable for pests.
That's a big one. Yeah, just lock stuff up. When I lived in the United States, everywhere I lived in the Midwest always had cockroaches. So I just got very paranoid about it. I always sealed everything up. I took the garbage out every day. I put everything in plastic bags. I put everything in glass containers and plastic containers. And then, I haven't done that in Canada, but when we got cockroaches, when our new neighbors moved next door in the duplex, I started doing the same thing. So I thought, you might want a free meal, but you're not getting one on my watch. So we just sealed everything up. And then we had the neighbors and the owner of the property over for a coffee and cockroach come to Jesus moment. We said, we want to show you all the things we're doing to combat the problem. And we showed them, the containers, the diatomaceous earth, but obviously I didn't use it correctly. And then she said, we're calling an exterminator once every 2 weeks for the next few months. And happy story, happy ending. No more cockroaches. So it's been a month. We don't have them anymore. So we all feel inordinately proud of ourselves for getting rid of the critters.
If I tell a personal story about bed bugs, because when I lived in Vancouver quite a few years ago, I was in a high rise. And at one point I found bed bugs, and I caught one and showed it to the property manager. he said, "Yeah, that's a bed bug." And he asked me not to tell anybody, and he would bring exterminators in. Uh, the thing is, I think it was required of him to tell other people that the extermination was happening, which he didn't want to do. He didn't want to get a bad reputation. And it turned out I was on like the 7th floor, and they'd moved up from the 1st floor, so he'd been exterminating as he went, but every time he exterminated, he just pushed them up another level, much like you said. So by the time it got to me, the entire building was infested. I was leaving Vancouver anyway, so I just burned all of my furniture. Anything that I had, I just sealed up in garbage bags for a year, and just had a few clothes left that I would wear that I cleaned very well. It was proper management of the bed bugs would have made such a difference in that situation. And yeah, the way they did it, I know that there was a lawsuit as a result of this. I wasn't involved in it, but it was a result of mismanagement on the property on the part of the property management. And
yeah, it definitely sounds like that. And I would really recommend that landlords and I just get on the other side of it. Tackle the problem head on. I mean, don't hide it. The more you hide it, the more it gets swept under. And when just think when you sweep something under the rug like that, they just keep multiplying. They don't care that you swept it under the rug. They want to survive. They're just going to keep breeding and multiplying. So really making the problem worse. If it ever gets out of hand like that too, Orkin actually has dogs that detect bed bugs. And they're much faster and much efficient than humans. We can go in and identify where they are and which units and do that really quick for you. So if it ever gets out of hand like that, there is tools and services out there that can help you eradicate the problem a lot quicker.
Wow. So there's really a lot of skill and science involved in extermination.
It's an industry that surprised me. I realize more and more, and I'm still learning to this day that it is. It's really down to a science. It's identifying. It's knowing your pests and knowing which things to get rid of them the fastest, work the best.
So I have another question, and I asked you this before the show. I've got a brother-in-law who's a psychologist. I've got another brother who's a doctor. Whenever they go to parties and people find out what they do, they're like, "Oh, I've got this issue. What if you can talk to me about it?" Do you get that when people find out that you're in the extermination business?
Oh, I do. I get people approaching me, talking to me in my when I'm in my street clothes, and they know I do pest control. They'll ask me about what do I do for this mouse that got in, or I found this bug under my mattress. I used to get a lot of text messages and messenger messages from friends, and all it was pictures of bugs. And no description, no nothing, just send me a picture of a bug. So I guess I'm supposed to tell you what it is. It doesn't happen as frequently anymore, but every now and again I'll have my buddy from Ontario text me, and I'm like, no, that's just a regular ant. You're fine.
Talk them off the ledge.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. I guess nobody can get away from it. Hairdressers always told me when they first started in business, their friends, their family, their landlord, whatever, all these people expected to give them that they would give them free cuts. Yeah. Or free perms or free whatever, and they're like, "This is what I do for a living. I can't be doing this for free."
Yeah.
Come to the salon, book an appointment, and pay for it type thing. So same with doctors, same with psychologists, same with exterminators. There's a reason why you pay them to do this, because they know something you don't know, and they can help you in a way that you wouldn't have been able to have helped yourself.
Yeah.
I found out all these different ways that I have been misusing the extermination things. Pest products and stuff. So there's a lot I absolutely don't know at all.
No, and that's fair, and it's really about just and a lot of our job is really just educating people and just letting them know how these pests exist. And we are honestly, all of us, we just want to live in a pest-free world as much as we can. Us too, being exterminators.
Yes, you said you brought them home.
I brought them home because I even knew my stuff, but what I did is I was lazy. I skipped a step.
Oh, really?
So with the bed bug treatment, you would steam and vacuum. So you would vacuum. See, that's where I already screwed up. So you'd vacuum and steam and then do a chemical treatment. That way, you would vacuum up most of all the bugs, and you have less to actually like treat and do it that way. So what I did instead is I steamed the cluster, and once I put that steam on the cluster, they flew everywhere. So they must have landed on me, and I brought them home.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, a lot wiser for that. One time. That's it.
And you'll never do it again. I'm sure you never did it again.
Exactly. Not once.
Ugh. Okay. Well, Brian, that was extremely enlightening.
It really was. I've learned a lot, and I found this very fascinating.
Yes, and I really was itchy all the way through. My nose was itchy.
Oh, me too. Me too. I still get itchy.
Just even talking about it makes you itchy. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of information. If people want to get hold of Orkin, how can they get hold of them?
So they can go to Orkin Canada, search them on Google. We do have offices all across Canada and America, a few places worldwide as well. Or you can call, we have a 1-800 number as well. They can find it online. Or you can reach out to me separately if you want. So it's bsankey@orkincanada.com.
And Orkin is Orkin?
Correct.
Yeah.
But I will put all of this information as a backlink in the YouTube discussion box. So you can access all of that on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So no problem there. We will make sure that you get Brian's and Orkin's information to get rid of your creepy crawlers in your house. And thank you, audience, for joining us. And if you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends, with your family, with other landlords, anyone else who you can help out. And by all means, subscribe to the channel because we're here to help you. And the more people that subscribe, the happier we all are, and the less creepy and crawly and itchy we all are.
We do have a Facebook user that has said thank you. So informative. So people are ready.
You're very welcome. It is a pleasure to do these programs. Every single time I interview someone else, even when I think there's a lot I know, I always learn something extremely new. But I really don't know anything about extermination, so I learned a lot new tonight. So thank you again, Brian, for joining us. And everybody have a wonderful night and have nice dreams of clouds and sky and sun.
Yeah, we're here to protect you. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.